Hello and welcome to the October edition of Under the Halo. Today with me, myself, Matt Stewart, are the regular panels that we usually have on our podcast here. So that includes Mark Harper, Kevin McGaggy and Jeff Nobes. As ever, we're going to start with our reviews of the previous month's matches, which for September started at home to Watford. Dare I say, I will pass it over to Mark first.
Okay, so straight into it, 2-0, and it was... The two Watford goals were scored by Abdoulaye Encore, and he basically scored with a low half volley from 25 yards. The second goal, which was scored by Daryl Yambat, and it was a 30-yard strike. Basically, the thing about this game for me was we were on an international break and we came back to play our first fixture back off the international break in the Premier League. The issue I had was if you were to pick your best 11 that Saturday, right, Yoshida would have been in there for me and so would have been Lamina. But we didn't have those two because of distance travelled or whatever reason it is that's given. But I'm sorry, I'm old school. I think you start with your best 11, and if they get a bit tired, you bring a sub on. You know, but I mean that's just my personal take on it as well. Is the other thing that I would say would be I'd like to do because of this fixture. I'd like to do away with the pre-match huddle, right? I'm failing to see the benefits of the pre-match huddle, right? Now, I know it whips the crowd up at St Mary's and everybody gets excited and they think, look at this unity from all the players, right? But let's be honest about it. That Saturday, our players looked like they'd met in a car park and they didn't know each other. You know, they met in the car park 5 minutes before the game kicked off. It was embarrassing. I would have been embarrassed if I was a professional footballer to put a performance out there like that. I know that they turned it around the following week, and they knew they had to turn it around the following week at Crystal Palace. But that performance against Watford was absolutely abject. I couldn't pick out anybody in a red and white shirt that I could turn around and say he was man of the match or he was man of the match or whatever. And the other thing that I would say is after that performance, it made me question as a club, right, whether or not it's a case that basically we have coaches. As managers, we don't have managers. We have coaches at our football club. You know, for me, Puel, coach. You know, Pellegrino, for me, is a coach. Basically, what's happening is and it's probably happening at other clubs, but, you know, you can tell me if I'm wrong here. It's probably happening at other clubs. But basically, what's happening is we don't have managers. We have coaches, we have hierarchy at our club that identifies for whatever reason, you know, the players that they want to bring in. But besides that, they'll only bring the players in, and this makes good financial sense. They'll only bring the players in when it's financially viable to do so. Haven't got an issue with that. But what I do have an issue with is, for me, the manager or the coach, whatever it is, has to have a say in the players that he's bringing in. And I'm sorry, I think at the minute we're having coaches appointed and not managers. So they're not really having a big say on who's being brought into the football club. The other thing that I was going to say was, you know, that game for me, I struggled to take even a positive out of it. Now, I can be the most negative person in the world, I admit that, but I'll always sit there and I'll always give you a positive over the 90 minutes of, you know, what someone's done that's deserving of praise. But the problem was with that game against Watford, there was no individual that I felt was deserving of any praise at all. Rant over.
Yeah, my view on the Watford game was, from my point of view, I probably expected my team to put on a bit of a performance, and I was certainly hoping to think it was a game we could win. Certainly a game I think we should be looking to win at home. We managed to score 4 goals against them last season away, and although we conceded 3. That the reason why I think we're just not scoring goals is we're not creating enough. And like Watford, beating us 2-0, and that's a home game for us. That's an average side at best, and that's probably being a bit generous. It's very disappointing to come away from a home game and you've lost 2-0. It's like you said, both the goals were from outside the box. So if you go and look at it from a positive perspective and you say we're strong in defence and we've got a defensive midfield, then somewhere along the line someone's not doing their job by closing down those players quick enough to prevent them from having those shots. And the thing that disappoints me is the fact that it's a same old story. It seems to be happening a lot lately, where teams are coming to St Mary's, they're having 1 or 2 chances, and they're taking them. And I think, being honest, that's a sign of a good side. If you get a chance, you take it, you make it count. And we probably had a lot of possession against Watford, but we didn't do enough with it. That's my criticism, my point.
Well, for me, for that game, I was kind of really disappointed with the way we performed. I thought we were kind of static. We only had a shot in like the 90th minute, as I recall. Before the game, I was kind of like up for the game. I remember the floodgates open because it was like raining. It was absolutely belting it down with rain. And then during the game, I really wanted Saints to perform for my close friend Jamie, and I was left highly disappointed. I thought there was no fight, there was no passion, there was no getting in. There was just Watford had two chances and 2 goals. It was very, very disappointing for my. And then after the game, it decided to rain as well. It was just a bad day in general for Saints.
I think obviously, nobody can say it was a good day at the office, but just going back to Mark's point about him saying there weren't any positives for the game, I did find one, and that was for Wesley Hoot for his debut. He didn't have a spectacular game, but he certainly showed that he could really step up and fit into the side. As we've said about the goals, there were long-range strikes, and I think actually the defence, as in our defence, weren't actually tested. And you could argue that we were unfortunate to concede those goals, but as we've said as well, we've got to look at the closing down and those kind of things. So without a shadow of a doubt, it was a horrible day at the office. But the one thing I was going to point out was Wesley Hoot.
I've got to say, for fans, I thought Watford fans were they did mark respect for the 22nd minute, and the whole stadium was applauding, which was a great thing.
Definitely.
I must admit, they did Watford proud as well, Southampton proud. We all did proud. But I thought, going back to what Mark's saying with the huddle, I tend to like it. I don't know, it kind of gets the crowd going. It kind of
If you can't get yourself going before you go into that stadium on a Saturday or whatever given day it is when you're going to watch Saints at St Mary's, there's something wrong with you. It's the same thing with me, and I'll go back to it again. about clappers, about the thing is, before the noughties, there wasn't such a thing as a pre-match huddle, right? You got your instruction in the dressing room, right? And you went out and performed on the instructions you were given in the dressing room. This pre-match huddle doesn't mean anything. Watford proved it to me. I mean, how can you have a huddle and you're all sat there, whatever it is that they say in this huddle?
It kind of gets the crowd going.
I think that's why it's there, though. I don't actually think it is there necessarily for the players' benefit. I kind of see both points here. I totally get that you don't need one.
No, you don't.
But I think they do it
To get the crowd
purely
going.
to sort of get the crowd really up for it, just so that moments before a game. And obviously they do it at away games as well, and we're not the only club to do it. But I think it's an interesting point and an interesting debate.
It's just something that I picked up on after the result, and the result was so abject. And I thought to myself, hang on a minute. When I was a kid, there was only two sports that I knew did a huddle, right? One was netball, women's netball, and the other one was men's volleyball, right? Or basketball as well, right? They all do huddles, but you're talking about a team of 6, right? Whereas this thing about the pre-match huddle has only come into being since the noughties, and it's like part of the onslaught of the Premier League and all this. But the thing is I don't mind seeing a pre-match huddle if I'm going to see a performance. My argument would be, after that Watford game, I was sitting thinking to myself, it's time to abolish the pre-match huddle. Because what does it do? It's only the players getting together to get the fans going. I mean, they could be sitting there saying anything in that pre-match huddle. They could be saying, how's the wife? How's the kids? How's life in general? It's a nonsense.
So we abolished the Southampton song, which is 10 minutes before the game, and then they play these kind of like get up and go music, and then you have to huddle to get the crowd even a little bit more going. So I think it's a good thing. That's my opinion on it.
But I'm sorry. I think if you're not motivated about going to watch your team play on a Saturday afternoon or whenever it is, why are you turning up? You should be already motivated. I mean, I'm sat here this evening and I'm thinking to myself, I can't wait for Saturday because I want to see us put a performance on and get the 3 points. Yeah. So I'll already be motivated but well before I get into the stadium. I certainly don't need to watch a bunch of grown men in a pre-match huddle for them to tell me that they're motivated, they're ready to get me going, because I'm already going, my heart's already pumping.
I reckon that should be a poll for the listeners, if you're Team Mark or Team Kevin, and we can discuss that in our next episode. If you think we should abolish the team huddle, you are Team Mark, and if you're all for it, you are Team Kevin.
But before you wrap it up as well, I just want to say, Kevin's quite right. We only had one shot, and it was in injury time, and that was for Cedric, and it was an easy save for the goalkeeper. And the other thing that I wanted to bring up before we move off from Watford was James Ward-Prowse started that game, okay? James Ward-Prowse came off, right, after the first 45 minutes. He was that poor. I'm not going to condone Pellegrino for doing that, because you could see it. The thing is I still feel that in regards to the physicalities of the Premier League, right, I don't think James is up to it. I think he's a quality player. I've argued the case on here before that he is quality. His delivery's second to none in terms of people in the same squad, but I think he struggles with the physicality.
Yeah, last thing, as we say before we wrap this up, I know it's already been brought up, but I think it was fantastic that we did get our moment of respect for Jamie. Obviously, Jamie was a very close friend to all of us here, mainly through football that we knew him, but it was very good that we were able to have that moment for him, and we still think about him and the family at the moment.
Yes, well done all of you, all you Saints fans. Well
Absolutely.
done, well done the Watford fans as well.
Cool. So now we move on to Crystal Palace. I will go to Jeff first.
Yeah. First thing I want to say about the Palace away game is I can't stress it enough. I think you've got to look at the positives, and I think it's being realistic as well. That winning away from home is a great result, and keeping a clean sheet is a great result. So, I want to make that quite clear.
Agreed.
Getting 3 points away from home at Crystal Palace is a great result, right? However, we were playing a team with no confidence, had lost all their games, hadn't scored a goal all season. And we scored a goal early doors, and yet we didn't capitalise on it and go on and get another couple of goals. Which really, we should be looking to kill a game off.
Yes.
If you go 1-0 up early doors, especially against a team with no confidence who's, bottom of the league, not scoring goals, etc., you should be going on from that, not just kind of kicking the ball around and passing and just kind of seeing out the next 80 or so minutes. We should have kicked on, and we didn't. And it goes back to what we're saying just now, that we're not creating enough chances and we're not scoring goals. Now, a goal's a goal. It doesn't matter really who scores it. But it was another example of where we've scored a goal, but it wasn't a striker that scored it. Yeah. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I don't think that's a good thing either. We need to get more goals in open play, and we need to get our strikers scoring goals. Now, I think that was a perfect opportunity in their situation, having gone 1-0 up, to go on and got a 2 or 3-0 away win. And you don't want to be seeing, you do want to see your team win, but you don't want to be seeing 0-0 one week, 1-0 the next, 0-0, 1-0. You want to see goals and entertaining football. And although it was a great result, I'm not so sure if we played entertaining football that day. That's more point.
For me, the game against Crystal Palace, I thought Mario Lemina was absolutely outstanding. He just run the whole show of that game for me. Apart from that, we had there was a new manager, and I was expecting a really difficult game before the game. And to get that early goal, I think we kind of sat back and wanted to protect the lead because it's a new manager. They had a new manager, and we didn't really know what to expect. So to come away from 3 points from that game, I was quite pleasantly surprised as well and pleased.
Yeah. I think, obviously they're not a team that are high on confidence, and obviously we said it in the preview of that game on the podcast that that's a game that we should be going there. Absolutely. Guns blazing, going to get a good result. But obviously the sacking of De Boer and then Hodgson coming in did throw a spanner into the build up. But no, I was very happy with the result. As I say, Mario Lemina absolutely run the show, but he was not the only one that had a good performance that day. I think a lot of the team had a solid performance, and actually, as we were saying after the Watford game, it was an improvement that was needed, and actually that was how it then turned out. So I think overall I was quite happy with the result.
I thought Wesley Hoyt had also a really good game. Some of the balls that he was crossing from one side of the pitch to the other side was like pinpoint accuracy. I thought he had a very good game in that match as well.
Right. Well, from the head, here comes the jackal. Basically, the Crystal Palace game was everything that I wanted to see after the previous Saturday. For me, we were at it from the go. I accept Jeff's point that we're not, once you score one goal, you should be scoring more goals. But I think one of the difficulties that we had was he decided to start with Shane Long. And the thing is what you will get from Shane is 100% work rate, and you might, what I'm trying to say is you might struggle to score goals with him starting. I mean, part of the problem as well is that, we had Nathan Redmond on the pitch who, he's having shots, but unfortunately they're not going in. You had Dusan Tadic on the pitch who actually, he was the man that was responsible for the goal, because for me it was a cross-come shot that basically Wayne Hennessy spell that it came out to Stephen Davis. And by the way, on his 200th appearance for Southampton, scored the goal. But from my own point of view, I was looking for a reaction from the players because the previous week was poor, and we got it. Okay, yes, you could turn around and say we're playing. I mean, I pointed out that we should be going and beating a team like Crystal Palace because of the run they were on. I don't accept that when you get a new manager coming in, he's automatically going to change things necessarily. To be fair, Crystal Palace had their chances, and even though I agree with what Kevin said, Lemina did have a good game. He bossed the midfield, but I also felt that, and this is where I'm diversifying a bit, I think that Fraser Foster proved what a good keeper he was that afternoon, because he made outstanding saves. Admittedly, both of them were point blank from Christian Benteke and Jason Punchin either side of the break. So I think that needs to be mentioned. The other thing that I would say is that I felt that the players after the previous Saturday felt that they owed the fans a performance.
Yeah, they did.
And they did do that. So you've got to give them credit for that, without a doubt.
Cool. Okay, I think we'll move on from that point. We'll go to the next game, which was Manchester United at home. Do you want to go, Kevin?
Yeah, for the Man United game, for me, I thought we were very unlucky in this game not to come away with a point. I thought first half, Man United kind of like, for the first 20 minutes, I was like saying to Mark, fingers crossed we don't concede, because if United score in the first 20 minutes, then we're going to find it really difficult. And unfortunately for us, Lukaku scored. For me, it kind of pushed Hoyt, and then the ball came in, and the next thing you know, he's like scoring, and I'm thinking to myself, in my opinion, the referee should have blown up, but he didn't. But then second half, I thought for me, we had a good second half, but we just couldn't get the ball in the back of net. They had one off we had one off for the line. I thought on another given day we could have got at least a point from that game.
Absolutely. I think weirdly, I was actually really positive about the second half, even though we'd lost. Thinking it was actually one of the best performances that we'd had this season. Normally, the one thing that I'd said to people around me at St Mary's actually was I was a little bit worried, because there'd been a few times already this season where United had gone 1-0 up, and for most of the game it stayed 1-0, and then they'd get to the sort of 80th or so minute and easily score 2 or 3 more in the remaining 10 or so minutes. And that's what I was kind of half expecting, with us tiring, us really pushing, especially with Rashford on the break and obviously Lukaku as well. I was really expecting us to sort of then suddenly succumb to a few more goals, but if anything, we were the ones pressing even more, and us the ones looking more likely to score. And we're actually very unfortunate, I thought, with some of the chances.
Yeah, Manchester United at home. I wouldn't say I was disappointed to lose that game, because I think it's not really a game you'd necessarily expect to win. I thought we played good possession football, in the sense of we had a lot of possession, passed the ball around quite well. We were fairly solid at the back, and we limited United's chances, which I think if you've got any chance of getting a result against a good side like United, you've got to limit the chances you give the other team to score. And we did that, to be fair. The problem being is they had like one chance and they took it. My gripe for that is that with the possession that we had, we should have really created some chances ourselves. And I don't really feel as if we really created next to no chances ourselves. And my point being is, if you create one chance and you take it, then we would have had a point in that game, due to the fact that we limited their chances. And I think we had the possession to have been able to create some chances, and we failed to do that. And it just goes back to what I was saying before. we're just not creating enough. You know, you don't score if you don't create chances. I think that is something that could be a problem this season if we don't get it sorted. But, you know, it's better than losing by 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
My take on the game was basically the Lukaku goal was actually, it came from a cross which Ashley Young, I think it was. Actually, it was a header from him, and I can't remember what actually happened, but the ball came back out to Lukaku, and he scored from there.
Well, Lukaku had the first effort that Fraser saved and then came back to him.
Yeah, came back. But what I was going to say was, I watched the incident that Kevin spoke about, and for me, it wasn't, you know, it was, the referee was never going to blow up for a foul for me, because it goes back to a little bit of last season when the referee was blowing for penalties all over the place initially in the first couple of weeks. I remember Mike Dean giving a few penalties for what for me was jostling in the box. I mean, basically the previous season, if Leicester had been doing it, they would have been getting players sent off left, right and centre and wouldn't have won the league. But as I said, you know, on that point, I would say, no, it wasn't, you couldn't really give a penalty, you know, you couldn't give a free kick on it. The other points that I was going to raise was Romelu Romeu had Saints' best 2 chances for me. One was a header that was cleared off the line by Flamini, and he also had a shot from a sort of tight angle, which you know just went past the post. But also, I'd say Man United had chances on the break. I mean, Lukaku had another chance, and then right towards the end, is it Torreira had a chance, which basically he should have put away for my money, but he blazed it over the bar. But having said that, I did take some positives away from the game. I thought to myself, we gave a better account of ourselves than I was anticipating. One of the criticisms I had of the performance was in the first half, right? Bear in mind that Shane Long's up there on his own, right? So at times he was receiving the ball from in an attacking position, but as soon as he got the ball, more or less, he had 4 or 5 Man United players around him, and he was in splendid isolation. And my question would be, both Redmond and Tadic were both on the pitch, right? So obviously they've been told, you know, when Shane Long gets in possession of the football, you're coming forward to support, right? But they were never coming forward to support him when he had the ball, so it was a thankless task, really. And I don't know what changed in the second half, but obviously we see much more of the ball. You know, the impetus was there, the intentions were there. Again, but like Jeff says, we didn't score, but it did take positives from it. It's difficult not to take positives, you know, when you're losing, you know, the United 1-0, admittedly at home. I worry that maybe Oz fans, the expectation level's gone down, but I mean, I think that has to be tempered with the fact that you've got a new manager, you know, and this, but the style of play for me is very, very similar to last season. And I don't know if other people agree. I mean, the way that we set up's very similar. It's 4-5-1, you know, and we'll have to wait and see in similar, you know, in future weeks whether that's going to change at all.
Very interesting thought, because Mark and I went to the big Saints quiz, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
That was brought up for Charlie Austin to answer to, and seemed very sort of diplomatic as ever he would be with his answers. But I know he's definitely itching to get on, isn't he? You could see, you could see it in his eyes that he wanted to be on the pitch and wanted to be contributing.
Yeah.
Go on, Kevin.
To me, like, I thought United were very ordinary that game. I think they kind of like, I was expecting United to like beat us 3 or 4 or 5-0. I was expecting to see like an amazing United squad. But to me, all they had in their team was height. They had like players of like real height, and in their midfield it was quite slow. They had Fellaini, they had kind of slow players, and I think that game was like crying out for Gabardini for most of the game, but he wasn't on the pitch. So to me, do you think that we need to kind of go out and change our tactics and maybe go like 2 up front, or do you reckon we should stick with just 1 up front?
Potentially. I think, again, it was interesting that Adam Blackmore, during the international break, had spoken with Pellegrino, and he'd said that he was going to experiment with different formations with the players that were here at the club during the break. So it'll be interesting to see what happens on Sunday.
Apparently there was a game behind closed doors against Fulham,
Yeah, won that 2-0, I believe.
And I'm led to believe that they actually played a 4-4-2 formation in that game. You know, I haven't heard any confirmed reports, but I know that Charlie Austin was playing up front in that game.
Yeah, because he was saying about it at the quiz, wasn't he? Because it was the day after. But he scored as well as James Ward-Prowse, I think.
That's right, yeah.
Anyone else got anything else to add before we move on? Okey-doke. So then, the final match of September we move on to is Stoke. Go on, Mark.
Right, well, just in case the listeners don't know, I was fortunate enough to watch this one with Matt. Frustrating, I would say. Saints only actually reacted once we went 1-0 down. Sorry to say it, but it's true. All of a sudden, we started using the width of the pitch. We were getting crosses into the box and everything else. But it's frustrating that you only are getting that reaction once we've gone 1-0 down. You know, you want to see that reaction or even positive signs when it's 0 each. I mean, the other thing that you would have to say is Yoshida's goal. Well, I think the only goal that I can compare to that would be John Barnes in the American whenever I was a kid. But Yoshida, flip me, what a goal. What a goal, son. Take a bye.
Definitely worthy of winning a game, but he didn't.
It was worth the entrance fee, as they say, you know, all on its own. One thing that I would take from the game is Virgil van Dijk played most of the game. Now, most people who know me know that I'm not afraid to the current controversy, right? And I would say, and I know there's going to be listeners who know me who'll listen to this and they will totally disagree with me, but I would say that Virgil had a mixed game for me. There were some very good interceptions that he did make, no doubt about it. Looked like he was playing within himself. Didn't look like he was completely fit, I have to say. Be interesting to see what he's like when he comes back from the Holland game tonight. Not really sure about how he reacted to the fans after the final whistle. I thought the applause that he was given was a bit lame, to be honest. And he did give away the penalty, which fortunately Fraser, who for me, by the way, in the last few games has been one of the standout performers in the Saints team. Yeah. You know, I'm going to keep on it because people don't give him any credit when it's due. They're very quick to criticise when, you know, he's having a bad patch. But, you know, and the other thing that I would say for me as well is this, and this is a criticism both of Pellegrino and Puel, right? Puel used to bring on like-for-like substitutions last season, okay? one of the issues I'm beginning to have with Pellegrino is that he reacts to the situation on the pitch, right? When we go 1-0 down, or doesn't give players substantial time, match time on the field of play, you know, when they're introduced. I mean, Charlie Austin came on with what, 6 minutes left, something like that, 2 Saturdays ago. That's not going to give him adequate time to sort of change the game for, especially when you're chasing it. You want to see us make positive changes when it's 0-0, and you're not reacting to what's going on in the pitch. I don't know whether I can, I do like Pellegrino, but I just sort of sit there and I think to myself, you're not being dynamic enough in what you're actually doing in regards to the substitutions. I mean, is there any major difference between doing a like-for-like substitution like Puel used to do, or just doing what Pellegrino does and actually reacting? But reacting once you've gone 1-0 down and you're chasing the game. The other thing that I was going to say before I wrap up is, when we were 1-1, what was wrong with actually defending the 1-1 rather than trying to go for the win? Right? Because at the end of the day, like was pointed out in one of the last podcasts, a lot of people in this room had gone for a 1-1 or a 0-0, a draw prediction. And most people thought that would actually be a decent point at Stoke because it's a difficult place to go. But I just didn't understand the fact that once we got it back to 1-1, because we worked bloody hard to get it back, let's be honest. To be fair to the players, that did work their socks off to get back into the game. But I felt that we threw it away because we took a sort of gun-ho attitude and thought, right, we need to go and get the 3 points here. And I would have been quite happy with the point.
Yeah, I felt when I was watching the Stoke Saints game, I basically felt that we were the better team to start with, and to concede the goal and go 1-0 down, I was a bit disappointed because I actually thought we were, arguably the better team of the two until that point. And then, to think that if Forster hadn't saved the penalty, it could have been 2-0 down at half time. I find that disappointing. I think we had enough possession before they got that first goal to have, potentially maybe going in front or something.
Again, it seems a similar theme for all the games. We keep saying sort of similar things, don't we?
But I felt that when we got back to 1-1, like you were saying just now, and then obviously Stoke ended up winning it 2-1. I just felt at 1-1, watching the game, I felt that Stoke, I was thinking, they're going to score in a minute. It looked as if Stoke were more likely to get the second goal rather than us going and win it. Yeah. That's what it looked like to me. And I was honestly, as I was looking at it, that's what it looked like to me. I just felt they were getting people in the right place. They just looked a bit dangerous.
But I still think that we had when it went to 1-1, we had a very cavalier attitude to it rather than thinking to ourselves, we've worked hard to get back into the game. The other thing that I was going to say very quickly was it's the old kiss of death because it's Peter Crouch yet again. Yet again. How many times is this guy going to pop up and score against us? And the other stat that I just wanted to say to you was Jeff, and I'll point this out to you because you were saying about the possession, right? That was our best possession stat this season, right? We had 71% possession. When you sit there, you go, that's why I always think possession is a meaningless stat. It's meaningless.
Yeah, this is like the kind of point I was trying to make, Mark. We had 71% possession. Yeah, I'm watching that game, and what I'm seeing, out of the two teams, it looked as if Stoke were more likely to score than we were. And that's after we worked hard to get ourselves back into the game. And a point I just want to make, and I'd just like to know if anyone disagrees with me, whether it was the Stoke game or any of the other games, this season for me, we seem to have a problem with creating chances, right? A lot of people saying we're not creating enough, but my point being is I feel that we're leaving some of our most creative players and our most expensive signings on the bench.
Yeah.
Now, call me stupid, but you're not going to create things if you leave creative people on the bench. Like, for example, I would class Buffel as a creative player, right? I would say Gabbiadini is our most likely striker to score a goal. And all too often, they're being left on the bench. Does anyone disagree with that or agree with that? Or just wonder what your views on it?
Well,
I think you're bang on, but there must be something in Pellegrino's mind that's swaying him that way. Obviously, we don't know that, and I would agree with you. For the most part, I think there are the players that should be playing more, but for some reason or other, Pellegrino's obviously seeing something that's swaying him in a different direction.
for me, I mean, I'm imagining that a lot of when you're picking your team to play on the Saturday, right? It's based around what you're seeing in training during the week. But the thing is like you could argue that there may be certain individuals within the team that are that are going out on the Saturday and not fulfilling their jobs to the way that us as fans want to see them do it. I mean, Matt and I were sat together, right? And Matt brought up a very, very good point, which I totally agreed with. And this was after about, 15, 20 minutes? The ball wasn't going wide at all. There was no crosses coming into the box from us. There was no attacking intent there. And my point was, why did we have to wait till we went 1-0 down? And Matt will back me up on this. Why did we have to wait till we went 1-0 down before all of a sudden we were putting crosses in the box, and it looked like we were going for it? And then, like I said, you get back to 1-1 and you're thinking, great, they've got what they deserved out of the game to a certain degree for me. And then it was like, for me, I understand what you're saying, because obviously it's probably easier for Stoke on the counter-attack to score a goal. But at the same token, I felt we took a very gun-ho, cavalier attitude to it and tried to go for the win. And obviously that's counterproductive, because as soon as you're trying to, push people forward and go for the win, right, of course you're open to the sucker punch. And I wrote it down here. The sucker punch, that's what we got caught by.
But one thing, before I go to Kevin, one thing I want to say is, I mean, for me, it was definitely the most gutting game so far.
Oh, yeah.
Being in that situation, seeing that amazing strike, as we've said, from Yoshida and not getting anything from it. But we tried too hard, as Mark said, to go for the win, and we didn't have the balance in the team. I mean, at one point we had 4 attacking players literally right at the top of the pitch, and yes, we got caught by a sucker punch. But one major criticism of Claude last season was that we were getting in positions with getting back level, for example, and then not playing expansive football to go and win games. Whereas now, certainly at Stoke anyway, we had the opportunity to do that, and we really tried and puffed and really had a good go, and that's what made it all the more gutting that we then had the sucker punch to then concede, because we actually had something that we haven't had for a little while in terms of actual, people really being up for it, and you could see the whole team are really up for trying to get that win.
Trying to get the win. That's true.
Go on, Kevin.
For me, I have to agree with Jeff, and I have to disagree with Mark. Okay. Firstly, I thought we started off really well during the game. Then I disagree with Mark about Virgil van Dijk, because I thought he played an all right game, because some of the tackles he was going in forcefully into the tackles. Thirdly, the first Stoke goal, I was really disappointed, because they had a corner and Juve was like doing nothing, and then the referee brought him to one side for no reason whatsoever. And then we couldn't, once Juve come back into the pack again, for me, we didn't have enough time to put a player onto Juve, because they had Juve and I think it was Cedric and Lamina. And for me, I think what should have happened was Lamina should have been in front of Cedric, and then he should have been the one that was marking Juve. So we lost him all because of the referee's decision to bring the player away for 2 seconds for a nothing incident. Then for me it was a penalty and it was a great save by Fraser Foster. But then for me I thought our most likely player to score was Yoshida, and when we put him up front he scored an absolute blinder goal.
We didn't actually put him up front, to be fair.
He just came from a set piece.
It was from a set piece, so he was already, as a centre back, you're always going to have your centre backs going forward for set pieces.
Do you feel like in our current team that if you got Yoshida up front, you feel a bit more confident that we're going to score? Where if you had an option between Yoshida up front or Shane Long in a given chance, I would put my house on Yoshida scoring over Shane Long. What's your opinion on this?
I don't know. I mean, he's not scored many, has he? But
for me,
the finish was amazing. I can't deny it.
For me, I don't think Shane Long's a striker. I don't think he's scored many goals.
So we worked out that his last goal was the 4th goal at Sunderland in February.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
For me, Shane Long's a midfielder. For me, Gavardini should be where Shane Long is, and Shane Long should be out either where Tadic plays or where Redmond plays. For me, Shane Long's not a striker.
It will be interesting because he got... he certainly didn't play last night in the Wales-Ireland game. I think he got an injury, so it'll be interesting to see if he recovers, and if he then doesn't start on Sunday, who comes into the team.
I just think, and I know I'll probably get slaughtered for this because people think I'm being biased, but when it comes to Shane Long, the thing is when he's not on the pitch, I think you do miss his work rate. I take people's point about if you're not, he's a striker and he's not scoring goals, and that's a criticism if you're a striker, okay? But like Kevin said, maybe there is the case where you can deploy him out wide, because the one thing you'll get, like I said, is 100% from him. So
he's got good work rate.
At the end of the day, we have Nathan Redmond and we have Dusan Tadic. Now, Dusan Tadic did deliver in the last game at Stoke, right? He was putting crosses in, right? I'd like to see a lot more of Buffel. I thought he did offer something when he came on against Stoke. Not exactly sure what it is yet, but he offered something. But Nathan Redmond, you'd have to say, on recent performances, there's a major question mark for me about him in the starting lineup. And I would like to know if everybody agrees on that point.
Shane Long's most prolific season was when Graziano was here. So they had a hold-him-up player holding up the ball and him running off the ball. I want to know why Charlie Austin's not the holding player and him running off the ball. That's my big question. Why have we not got a player that can hold the ball up and let him score the goals?
Right. Charlie Austin isn't that kind of player for a kick-off. Charlie Austin is more, for me, he's more your instinctive striker, right? Also, on the plus side about Charlie, I think as long as you've got crosses coming into the box, right, which is something that seems like in a forward sense, right? As long as you've got crosses coming into the box, Charlie Austin's an aerial threat, right? People argue Shane Long, yes, he can get a good spring on him, but the thing is, if you've got crosses, if you know you're going to play a game and you've got crosses coming into the box, Charlie Austin is our option in that regard. He'd give you some sort of physical presence up there. Yeah? If you're playing balls in the feet, then it's Gabbiadini. Right? Similarly, if you're playing balls to feet, it's Shane Long. But the thing is, and I'll go back to this again, we've discussed it on the podcast. I think in terms of what each individual striker brings, we are lacking something. It's like Kevin said, we are lacking that striker that will hold the ball up, bring other people into play. We are lacking that because we don't have that kind of striker.
Ironically, that's what Mark Hughes said about Peter Crouch, and that's what his role is in the Stoke team.
Yeah, no, definitely. Albeit that he only comes on for the last 20 minutes.
But he's got his
very much
role
so.
and he sticks to that and he performs it well.
Very much so.
Going off your point, Mark, about Redmond, I think again we were kind of asking these questions halfway through last season, weren't we? And then his form picked up at the end of the season,
and it's gone backwards
yeah.
again.
So very hit and miss. At the moment, he would be. I mean, I'll back any player that wears the shirt on the pitch, of course, but he would be the player that I think would benefit from a drop for a game. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If you were the manager, what kind of things would you do to change our squad then at the moment? I'll start with Mark and then I'll go through.
The thing is, you can't really change anything. I mean, there's no, if you look at the under-23s, there's no one really in the under-23s that are scoring goals. I mean, we'll have Ryan Seeger, who's out on loan at the minute. He's more of a sort of deep line player for me. He's not an out-and-out,
we've gone through this on the podcast, haven't we, with the three strikers that we've got out on loan.
He's not somebody who's physical. I mean, you would hope maybe that Sam Gallagher, but I'm not even sure, having watched Sam Gallagher, that he's that kind of. He's not a holding up kind of player. He will play off the cuff more. He likes to be in the central role as the striker. I mean, when I watched him in the under-23s, well, it was last season before last, we were playing him out wide, and he wasn't comfortable playing. One thing I can say is I don't think he's particularly comfortable playing out wide. But within the squad, there's no options at the minute. There really isn't. You look at the under-23s, there isn't the option there. I mean, certainly not for this season, but I'm excited by Olamola at the moment. He's banging the goals in for Yeovil.
Yeah. What would you do, Jeff? If you were the manager, what would you do to our squad, and what would you tell them to do, and what would you?
I'd play two up front. I'd play Gabbiadini. I don't know. Undecided whether I'd play Austin or along with him, but I'd play Gabbiadini. I'd look to get one or two more attacking players in January. I'd quite like the idea of getting Walcott to come back. Whether that's possible, whether it'll happen or not, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You just need someone come in who's going to score goals, really, I think.
Just one step.
I wouldn't, looking back at the start of the season, I wouldn't have sent Gallagher out on loan. I would have had him here.
We said that.
I would have sent Gallagher.
I think there's definitely space for him in the squad somewhere.
I would have sent them out on loan, and I would have brought a striker in. Like I said, whenever we were discussing the transfer window, I said then, and I'm still saying now, we're deficient in attacking midfielder, and we're deficient in an additional, for option reasons, striker. And I said that at the time, and I still stand by that now.
Okay,
can I just make one point? You said about Olamola, the Nigerian striker that's gone on loan to Yeovil.
Mm-hmm.
He's been scoring quite a few goals there, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Do you know how many he's actually got?
Not off the top of my head.
But he's got quite a few so far.
He's got quite,
he's been
just an interesting
regular.
point. At the beginning of the season, he was 100-1 with Sky Bet to be the League Two's highest goal scorer.
Oh,
Okay.
That's one to keep an eye on. him. Shall we move on to our previews of the game now?
Yeah.
So we'll go obviously to the one for this Sunday at Newcastle. I'll go for Kevin.
I can see it being a very difficult game. I can see the way Rafa Benitez and Newcastle have been playing recently. I think they look organised. They look like they can. I think they got a striker, Yossele. I can't pronounce his name, but Yossele, and he looks like he could score goals. I think we might find everybody's thinking Saints will win on Sunday, but I think it could be a very difficult game for us.
Jeff?
I'm being positive on this one. I think we've got a good home record against Newcastle. We've had some good results against Newcastle over the years. I agree with what Kevin's saying about Rafa Benitez getting Newcastle playing some nice football. They had all right result against Liverpool the other week. Was it a draw?
Yeah,
1-1. But there again, our defensively we're quite strong, and Liverpool have got issues with defence. So I think it's a type of game. I think we could do a job in defence against them, and I think we can nick a 1-0 home win.
Okay.
Fairly confident we can just about nick it.
I'm a fan of Jamal Castells at the back for Newcastle.
Good quality
I
player.
think he did well, last season to get them up into the Premier League.
He's in my fantasy team.
I quite like Perez that plays for them as well. I mean, they'd be two standout players for me. Castells isn't that young or that old. I think he's only like 23, 24. Funnily enough, I'm surprised he hasn't had an England call up, to be honest. Looking at it. But yeah, it's going to be a difficult game. I mean, Jeff makes a good point. Yes, we're okay defensively, but again, on the flip side of that, not scoring goals. One of the issues looking at the game, I think I seen a stat the other day that said that there's been 985 minutes of football played at St Mary's, and we've only seen one goal from open play. That is a shocking stat, whatever way you look at it,
We're all well aware of it, though, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean,
Publicised all over the place.
it would be lovely to get the monkey off our backs, so to speak, but, hopefully they can. What I'd like to see is a professional job being done on Sunday, a bit like how we played against Crystal Palace, because they knew that they had to put a performance in. They knew after, such an abject performance. So I'm just hoping that we get some kind of reaction, and we don't hide behind this. Well, what do you expect? We're on an international break, and the other thing that I would say as well is, Pellegrino, if you know what your best side is, put it out on Sunday and play it, irrespective of whether they've been travelling from Malaya or wherever it is in the world. Put your best team out, and for goodness sake, let's try and be a little bit more positive as the home team than playing 4-5-1.
Yeah, I think it's something that, again, you're always wanting, trying to be positive about a home game. I'm always up for going to home games and really trying to get, hopefully trying to see a performance. I'm with Jeff, actually. I think we might be able to nick it, but it will be, as Kevin said, a very tough game. I think it's one that we definitely can't take for granted. But looking forward to the game and say hopefully a response that I think the players and the management know is needed. Yeah. So again, similar to when we talked about the Watford game, knowing that there was a response needed after that, and they produced it, hopefully that'll be the same again. Okay, following on from that is West Bromwich Albion. Jeff?
Yeah, they're a bit of a bogey side for us, West Brom. We had some iffy results against them in previous seasons. I think we might lose this one. They're just a bit of a jammy side, West Brom, for me. I kind of think that J-Rod might come back and haunt us. He's playing well for them.
Yeah.
I think they'll nick it.
Kevin?
I'm completely opposite to what Jeff thinks. I think they're the team that we should be beating. I think there's nothing really in West Brom that I can see that's going to threaten. I think it's either going to be a 0-0 or we're going to score one, and then I can't see us losing against West Brom for some strange reason.
Right.
For me, it is a tough game. Let's not be under no illusions here. It's a tough game, and I'm sorry, I'm going to say I actually admire Premier League managers, and I know they come in for a lot of stick, but I admire people like Sam Allardyce, I admire people like Tony Pulis, right? Because even though people knock them, right, they bring something different to the top league, right? And they make sure that you as a team have to be switched on for the 90 minutes, right? They will come, they will be solid, They will be resolute in the way that they defend, and they will offer more than Kevin's given them credit for, because let's be totally honest about it. They have people like Matt Phillips who plays for them, who's a winger. You've got Chris Brunt, who comes in with more than his fair share of goals as well. They've got a solid base in Johnny Evans and Craig Dawson at the back. And, you know, if you want to throw Gareth McCauley into the mix, do that as well. So they've got what I'm trying to say is they've got a solid base from there, but they also have attacking players. And I think they're the sort of side that you underestimate at your peril. You've got people like James Morrison, who are runners from the midfield, you know, and it's something that you have to guard against. Darren Fletcher will give you energy all day in the middle of the park, you know. He will chase a lost cause. I know people sit there and they think, oh, we should be beating the West Broms of this world. They're basic. They don't have any players. That's an ignorant remark to make, to be fair. It's ignorant because, when I tell you, we are going to have another game on our hands when we play them.
They've got that defender,
Hagazi, yeah.
Hagazi as well. He seems like a quite big player, but to me, like, they've got, I don't know what their striker is. I've forgotten what his name is, but
Hal Robson Carney.
not him. It's the other one. Rondon. He's quite powerful, but then to me, they haven't really got. For me, I don't see an attacking threat from him that much. I think they're the type of team that will come to St Mary's and park the bus. I will go see that.
But we said that last season, and they went a 1-2-1.
But that's true. I mean, but the thing is it's like every football team. You need a solid base, right? And they have a solid base to work from. And the thing is I thought last season when we played them, I thought they beat us convincingly. I know people aren't going to like me for saying it, but there was only one team on the pitch that day, and it wasn't us.
No.
You know.
For those that know me, know that West Brom is always a bit of a special game. My best friend's a West Brom fan, and so we always try and pick this game out in the calendar, and we end up talking about it.
Hopefully he's not listening to the podcast.
I'll mention him in it, and then he'll have to listen to it. No, but even we were chatting about it, and we were saying, yeah, it's not looking like a classic. Not that any of them games that we ever have are really. I can obviously we'll go and talk about our predictions corner later on, but I'm sensing a very tough game, and it's going to probably be. If it is going to be won by a team, it'll probably be by a goal. And then we'll go on to our only away game of the month along the south coast to Brighton. Go on, Mark.
Right. Well, I'm going to make an admission here on air. I'm not actually going to the game. I'm going to let all the holiday makers go.
Unbelievable.
But what I would say is, again, when I was sat thinking about this game, I thought to myself, let's not be complacent about this, right? Brighton is going to be a tricky game on their own patch. Now, don't get me wrong, if we were playing them at St Mary's, I would expect a win. I'm sorry. But we're playing them at their place, and again, I look at some of their players and I think, okay, they probably don't look the greatest. There's one or two that you would say, is he still playing in the Premier League? I mean, Steve Sidwell's in their numbers, and it surprised me that he was still there. Shane Duffy, who did sterling work last night against Wales for the Republic, I mean, he seems a very resolute defender again. For me, he seems that they'd be able to deal with anything that sort of comes into the Brighton box. I mean, okay, they haven't they're one of those teams, okay, I predicted for them to go down, and they probably will go down, and they probably won't pull up any branches by their performances necessarily in the Premier League. They've still got, they've still got Anthony Lockhart to come back, or Knockhart to come back, and because he lost his father recently and he hasn't been playing, and I think he is a key player for them. I'm hopeful that we're going to win the game, but again, I don't see there being a lot of goals in there. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because obviously the opposition fans, being as they are, a bit like Bournemouth, will tell us that it's a derby, and it's not a derby. It's not a
But I'll be
derby.
up for it for sure.
But anyway,
Yeah, I think we need a bit of a revenge mission from our last trip to the Amex, back in the Championship when we lost heavily when
and Ricky gets sent off.
had a goal that disallowed that should have been given by Lallana, and I remember that game very well.
Yeah, bit of a disaster.
Again, I'm looking forward to the game. Obviously going to a different ground. Obviously, I have been there before, but haven't been there for a while. Looking forward to that.
It's completed now,
Yeah,
so
but
you can look forward to that even more.
I think again, being at the Amex, it's a game that we can't take lightly. I'm with Mark on the fact that if we were at St Mary's, I'd be much more confident. But having said that, I still think we should have enough. I know we've been saying about the issues that we've been creating with our creating of chances and things like that, but I think we should have enough if we're being honest.
Yeah.
But as we know, that isn't always the way that football games work out. So we'll need to have our wits about us and put in a performance. But I think if we do, then we will have enough to win the game.
Basically, with the Brighton game, I think that I wouldn't call it a derby. I can't stress that enough. It's not a derby, but I think it's not a game that Saints fans are going to want to lose because Brighton have been lower than us in previous seasons. On the other hand, it's not a game that Brighton are going to want to win it because we've been higher than them in previous seasons. But more to the point, I think Brighton are going to want to scrap and fight for every point they can because they want to stay in the Premier League. And it's not a place where we're going to want to go and lose. So I think it's got a draw written all over it, personally. I think it'll be a draw.
Yeah, so Mark, I'm going to enjoy the pie where you're in a pub instead of being at the game.
I will be in the pub with Mark, Dave and Wes.
I will be enjoying Brighton pies and enjoying the ground. And for me, if we keep knockout quiet, then I think we could be comfortable there. We tend to play better away from home than at home at the moment, and I think it could be like the type of game that like we played at Crystal Palace. I can see a similar type of game, and I think if we keep knockout quiet, then we'll be fine on that game, I think.
And then to wrap up the month, we'll go for the home game at Burnley. Back to Kevin.
Very difficult game. I think Sean Dyche is very organised, very compact. I think they seem to be doing a lot better away from home than they did last season. I think last season, I don't know how many points they got, but
They got one.
I think they got one away from home.
No, they didn't. They did win away, didn't they? Actually, in the end.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyways.
Yeah.
Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah, so I think they didn't. I think they beaten their tally from last season. I think they look a very dangerous team at the present moment in time. They've had some good results against, I think, Chelsea, if I'm right, Liverpool. I think I don't know which teams they've won, but they've done very.
Drew at Spurs.
Yep.
One against Everton at the weekend.
Yep.
Well,
For me,
match day.
I personally think they could be the surprise team of this season. For me, personally. So I think, to me, that this is a game where I can see us actually losing. Out of all the four teams, I think Burnley's going to be the most difficult game out of.
Yeah, I think I agree with Kevin on that one. They've got a good forward line, got some good strikers at Burnley, and they're an underestimated team. They seem to get good results against good sides, and they always have a go. They seem to come out to play, attacking football and try and win games. So, I'm expecting a very difficult game in that one. And I wouldn't be too surprised if we came out a cropper on that one.
Okay. For me, echoing the same sort of thing really about West Brom with Burnley. Only I struggle to understand why Sean Dyche hasn't been offered the opportunity at a bigger club or with a club with more resources. But having said all that, he's still at Burnley, and interesting summer they had. There was the additions of Jack Cork and Chris Wood, and I've got to say Chris Wood. People knock Chris Wood, right? But Chris Wood will score goals wherever he goes, right? I was surprised that West Brom actually let him go so young because he started out at West Brom, and but if you look at him, Brighton, even when we were down in League One and he was on loan at Brighton, he scored goals there. He scored goals wherever he's went in the Championship. And people say to me, oh, there's a risk, to step up to the Premier League and all the rest of it. But I think if you're scoring goals, and it's a phenomenal amount of goals through the leagues, the transition to the Premier League, I think, is easy enough for you. I mean, it happened for our own Ricky Lambert. So there's that to take into consideration. The sign good, solid professionals. Jack Cork, we all know about Jack Cork. Signed for them for £10 million. At the time, I thought £10 million was a lot of money. Personally, I wouldn't have spent that much. But that's another good acquisition. They brought in Jonathan Walters, who, I mean, okay, you might turn around, you might say, well, he's 35. But this guy knows about the Premier League. He knows about international football. They've all been round the block. I think people like Jeff Kendrick, since he moved to Derby, from Derby to Burnley, been a revelation in the Premier League. Also, people like Robbie Brady that's gone there. I think everybody that seems to have moved to Burnley, and certainly in recent seasons, has been a success, and they've built on that success. Burnley's a little bit like us when we first came into the Premier League, because the way you're talking about Brighton and they say about scrapping for every point because you're a newly promoted side and stuff like that there. That was Burnley in the first knockings, and then they went down and they came back up, and they've been there ever since. They're a little bit like West Brom, but I think they're better than West Brom because they go out and they sign people who have the potential to make the transition to the Premier League from the Championship. People say you don't get bargains in the Championship anymore. In relative terms, they spent next to bugger all for Jeff Kendrick when he moved to Derby. So it's from Derby. So it's a nonsense to say that there aren't good bargains in the Championship. You just need to know what you're looking for. But having said that, the game itself, it's going to be tough. It's going to be so tough. I can't see any quarter being given. So it's just going to be, I mean, I'm not looking forward to predictions corner, that's for sure. But besides all that as well, I just want to say one thing, and we went off it before, but Chris Hughton, I wish him all the best with Brighton. He got a raw deal when he was the manager at Newcastle, and he brought them up, and they sacked him after virtually no games at all. And I thought the way he was treated was appalling because he did a tremendous job in bringing them up. So I wish him well for the season. Sorry.
That's all right. Back to Burnley. I can only echo what's been said. I think Sean Dyche, seemingly for some reason, is being very underrated for whatever reason.
I mean, Kevin nicknamed him the Ginger Mourinho.
But I highly rate him, and I highly rate his attitude towards a team performance and the way of doing the stuff at the club. Again, it's been a very hard game, and as other people have said, it's not going to be easy, and we're looking at one of the tougher games in the month. And anyway, time to really put our money where our mouth is in the predictions corner. I'm going to read out the current standings, and then I will read out Hugh's and Warwick Dave's predictions, and then we'll go round. So currently in the lead at the moment is Kevin with 7 points. Jeff just behind him on 5. Myself on 3. Hugh on 2. Mark on 2. And Warwick Dave with the solitary 1. As for the round of games this time round, Hugh has gone for 1-0 Saints against Newcastle. He's also gone for a 2-0 West Brom win. He's gone for a 1-0 Southampton win at Brighton and a Burnley win at home as our game at home to end the month. Warwick Dave has gone for a Saints 2-0 win at Newcastle, a 2-0 win at West Brom. He's gone for a scoreless draw at Brighton and a Saints 1-0 win at home to Burnley. So we'll start off. We'll actually do it by the game. So we'll go round for our predictions for Newcastle, starting with Kevin.
I'm going to go 1-0.
Jeff?
I want to go Southampton to win 1-0.
Mark?
I'm going to go 1 each.
I'm going to go same as the previous two, 1-0 win.
There's quite a lot of 1-0s there.
Yeah. I'm going to go the opposite way around now for West Brom. So Mark?
2-1 West Brom.
Jeff?
I want to go 1-0 to West Brom.
Cool.
2-1 Saints against West Brom.
I'm going for a 1-1 draw.
I'm not getting inspired here. That's all.
Jeff, your prediction for Brighton away, please.
0-0 draw.
Good stuff here, guys. Come on.
1-0 Saints against Brighton.
I'll take that. Mark?
I'm going to say a comfortable 2-0 win.
I've gone a 2-1 away Saints win. And then for Burnley at home, go back to Kevin again.
2-0 Burnley.
Ooh. Mark?
I was going to go 1-0 Burnley.
Go on, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-0 Burnley.
Oh, I'm being more ambitious than that. I'm going for a 1-1 draw at home.
It's away, mate.
And
next month, if you're a Saints fan, it's away, mate. Forget about it. Don't even bother going.
And on that beautifully optimistic end to our podcast, we thank you guys for listening.
Predicted a Saints win against Burnley. It's funny.
Thank you guys for listening. I want to say a quick shout out to the new followers this week, the last month even. We really value you supporting our podcast and our page. And we'll have this up on YouTube very soon. Thank you very much, guys.
Very much.
See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed what we had to say on this session of Under the Halo. It might be our voices on the mics, but remember, it's your voices that really count on getting this podcast out to the fans. So please recommend us to your friends and other supporters to follow our social media. If you want to get in touch, find us on Facebook and Twitter at UnderTheHalo1 or use the hashtag UTHalo. You can also email us at underthehalo1@yahoo.com. Until next time, come on you Saints!